When we're deep in disturbance and deep in turmoil, there really isn't very much that can break through. But if you find the right solution, perhaps through sound, you can break through and find your way back to the center of calmness. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Center of Calmness. We are super blessed this evening to have Maitra Emiliana with us. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to be here with you, DK. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. It's so glad to have you. How are things, if I may ask, in Oakland at this time?
It's good now. You probably know we were dealing with a lot of fires in California. So we've had several of those actually, but for now the air is clear, and we're all very relieved with that.
Good. I'm always amazed at how intense the fires can be when they spread through, and then also how quickly the air clears. Just a testament to the amount of circulation and the ability of the earth to heal itself, if you will, from such devastation. Were you and your community relatively unaffected?
Yeah, we were relatively unaffected, although, some of the fires, the smoke stayed around for about a month.
Wow,
so
that's a long time.
So it was a really long time. So it just depends on the weather patterns, how fast it clears. But I'm very fortunate to be safe. There was a lot of devastation. Yeah.
No, I understand, and my heart goes out to those that were affected, and I'm sure there were many. I saw a picture once on an airplane. Somebody sitting next to me. It was not this fire, but a previous set, and it was horrendous from ground zero of that particular. So yeah, my heart goes out to folks that are now digging out from underneath that. Huge. But glad to hear you're all right. And is the pandemic still an issue where you are?
Yes, it is. I think it has reduced a little bit, but I think we're going to be hitting the next wave this fall as we head into the winter. But I feel very fortunate to be well. And, of course, just praying for everybody else.
Absolutely. And likewise. Yeah. It's to have three waves is almost unconscionable. We were talking about just having two waves. So that's quite a lot to deal with as well. And so actually this segues into your solution, which is ever more necessary than before, as we look for pathways to maintain and also return to a center of calmness. Now, as I understand it, you're into sound healing and sound healing based solutions. If I could ask, just to start, how did you find your way to that path?
That's a great question. So I am a musician. I'm a pianist. That's what I studied in college and graduate school. I studied piano, and I didn't have a professional career with it, but it was always there. And then when I became a psychotherapist, after I went through some health issues and sought out different forms of healing, including just holistic healing and mind, body, spirit healing. And I was guided, literally told, I received these messages that my work was with sound healing, and I didn't even know what that was. And I, had just big question marks. How can sound possibly heal? But I learned about it, and I started using it with my clients and just started integrating it a little bit here and there. And I was blown away by how quickly the healing, the shifts, the transformations happened. And on every level, in psychotherapy, I learned okay, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. But this was like everything was happening at the same time. And, and it was quick. It was very effective. It was lasting. And to me, it seemed things which would take years, people were done within a few months.
That's amazing. Such acceleration. Was there a kind of a critical moment in your own life that shifted you into hearing that message that you needed to get into sound healing, and then beginning the training process to adapt your skill set into that? What can you describe a bit for our audience what that moment was and how it shifted you?
Sure. Yeah. So I got Lyme disease out of the blue, and it wasn't the bullseye, which people, can be treated. It was very, very, really distressing symptoms, which made it pretty unbearable to get through the day and the night. And so, of course, I tried going to see a regular physician and a practitioner, but, coming from India and being a holistic psychotherapist, I'm always looking at the mind, body, spirit connection. And so I, did some work on deep emotional work on my own. Of course, I was using holistic, medication, supplements and herbs. But I went to Brazil for spiritual healing. And I went to a center there where it was nothing like I'd ever even known about, leave alone experienced. And I didn't know what I was going in for. My partner at the time said, you should try it out, because he had been. And I went, and it was extraordinary that my symptoms vanished in 2 days. And, a year and a half later, I was free of, I had nothing at all. But while I was there, it also healed me emotionally. There was deep emotional healing that happened, as well as a spiritual awakening. And my intuition opened up, and I started receiving visions, like movies, and hearing messages. It was just these downloads and being shown what my work was, and not just in this life, but in past lives. And it was all coming in so fast and furious. It was just like this sudden deluge of information. I didn't know what to do with it.
Of course.
But because of the healing I'd received, it opened me up to what is healing. That so much more is possible with healing than I had studied as a therapist. So it made me open up to a paradigm that, we don't talk about much or isn't known. It's always sort of off to the side. It's considered woo-woo. But the effects were unbelievable. And because I received that for myself, I wanted to share that with people. And so sound is one of the ways that this happens. And that's what I use. Yeah.
Neat. If I may ask, while you're in Brazil at the Healing Center, was sound the primary modality that they used, or was that kind of a different approach to just awaken you to exercise your gift into sound and to apply sound into a healing modality?
Yeah, they played music. They had a lot of meditation, so there was music, but it wasn't at all prescribed as sound healing. The sound healing message was just for me.
Right.
Each person received what they needed to do for their sole purpose. But this was mine to do. Yeah.
Wow, such an awakening. That's great.
Yeah.
And so from there, of course, you were already highly trained in sound and particularly piano, right? How did you adapt that training into actually creating a modality that generates healing from that?
The whole journey was like feeling my way in the dark, because I didn't know what it looked like. The only message I got was start with a crystal singing bowl and just go, and you will be shown as the way. As you take the steps, the next steps will be given to you. I'm a very spiritual person, and going to Brazil just opened it up completely. And, I've had a difficult relationship with my piano. Though I'm a musician, I had some trauma, so I didn't play for several years. So I wasn't sure what that was going to be about. But one day, there was literally what I would call a visitation of a presence, of a being. And I was listening to music, and it just, I could see the extraordinary, exalted quality of this presence. And I just burst into tears. And, as the presence faded, I walked to my piano and I sat down. And as a classical pianist, I had never been able to improvise. I always needed my music. I needed the Bach, I needed the manuscript, I needed the Beethoven, the Schubert, I needed the books. Nothing would come.
Right.
I sat down this day, and I just played, something came through. It just felt like something was just coming through me. And the whole time I was crying, and I didn't know what it was, but it felt like something was coming through me. And so I did that for 2 years. I would sit, almost every day and just allow myself to open and receive. I didn't want to put a name. I still don't have a name for it. I still don't know what to call it. And then I started telling friends, and I had a friend visit me, and I asked her to lie down under the piano. And she was game. So I said, I didn't know what I was doing, but I played. And she had this extraordinary experience. She was crying. Her body was releasing. She had these visions. And it was a very profound healing through sound. So it was this opening and exploration of something I had no idea about. And then I knew something very powerful was happening. So I started asking more people to do it, to come. But the piano being the piano is, you can't cart a grand piano everywhere. A baby grand piano.
A little bit heavy, right?
So I, used the crystal singing bowls, which was also part of the guidance. And it's similar yet different. So I use different instruments now, but I think ultimately it's creating this connection to spirit, opening up the client to higher dimensions of who they are, so they can receive the healing. It seems all very otherworldly, and it's really hard even now for me to talk about this too, because as I'm talking, I'm thinking, this is really wild stuff. But people have, I go back to what people say when they receive it, the power, the depth of what they receive.
That is really neat. Yeah. And although you might think it sounds off, for folks that have started down this journey where they're looking into stuff like this, it's not nearly as off as it might sound like. That is outstanding. So to me, it seems that it's an intuitively driven process, and actually intuitively developed process, but it's really a melody that you're, if you will, channeling from somewhere right into the present moment, and then allowing someone else to benefit from hearing that same melody. That's quite profound. So what results have you seen with? Obviously, you've seen a profound shift in yourself through the visit in Brazil, but for folks, and maybe not the first couple that are probably going to be a very very deep personal experience with them. But if a client comes and they have Lyme disease, so can they experience the same thing that you did, just by enjoying that melody with the piano or with another instrument?
Well, I cannot claim a healing on that level, right? I cannot say people be cured of disease, but what I do know is that first, in terms of the benefits, is that the body relaxes to a very, very deep state. So, and that is so good for the nervous system. It is so good for the immune system. It is so good for all the systems. And in the world of sound, in the world of vibrational healing, the whole paradigm is that the body, like nature, is a harmony. And different parts of us have different frequencies or different vibrations. So the bones, the muscles, the tissues, the organs, each have different frequencies. And disease happens when literally the body goes out of tune, just like a musical instrument.
Sure.
So you can also say that a diseased person's body has forgotten how to sing its song.
That's very profound. Okay, I gotcha. So it's not just vibrational frequency of each system, it's also that the systems have an energy they produce. They are an orchestra of sorts.
Absolutely. Because what the sound does, just you're really getting it. What the sound does is it mirrors, or it touches, or it affects the body, the cell, whatever, part of us, because sound travels through all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And cells, blood, every atom, every molecule is ultimately vibration as energy. And so it is like an echo. When it receives the sound, it remembers its own sound and retunes itself. And when the retuning, it shifts out any negative energy or whatever is out of tune, and it remembers, oh, this is me. And so on a whole level, the whole symphony, the whole orchestra of the body begins to remember its attunement. It literally gets retuned and reharmonized, rebalanced. And this is not just on a body level, but also our emotions and the thoughts, and certainly on a spiritual level. So sound affects every level at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that, right? Physical, emotional, spiritual, all three. And then, of course, we can talk about all the different subtle bodies that are included in that model at some other time, perhaps. That is very cool. So yeah, and just to clarify a comment we were talking about earlier, it's not the sound or the music that produces the healing itself. It is actually the reharmonizing of the individual that's receiving the sound who heals themselves.
That's right. There is one of the principles of sound healing is the principle of resonance. And so there's a resonance that gets created, that when there's one part that's vibrating, the other part also vibrates. And it is in that resonance that the body, the emotions, the mind remembers, whether it's calm, whether it's peace, whether it's harmony, whether it's love, whatever, because we are ultimately made of so much goodness, and we've forgotten it, and we forget it in the stresses and the distractions and the so much toxins and struggle and pain. We forget that. We get out of tune with that. And in that remembering, there's a deep peace, there's a deep knowing, there's a deep intelligence that gets vibrated and remembered. And that is profoundly healing for the client. And that's what I have seen again and again, that it's an experience for which people will often have no words, but they know. And it's a knowing that's unshakable, and it's a knowing not of the mind, but it is a very deep knowing, and it's as though they can never return to who they were.
Wow, that's profound. So it sounds like, to use a pun, I guess, it sounds like reharmonizing, but really what you're talking about is a shift, a return back to an earlier time before we experienced the pollution or the distortion that opens the body for disease or opens the mind for emotional turmoil. We're really not really talking about disease healing here. We're talking about calmness. So that allows us to return back to our natural state, which is calmness,
calmness.
or like I said, love and peace, and all of the other elements that we begin with, and that in a way are taken away from us as we tense up and protect ourselves in a way by containing that which we're trying to eliminate.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, this is super profound, and I'm sure there's a lot more to be learned here. So I wanted to include your website here, templeofsoundhealing.com. Do you offer sound recordings or other methods where folks can begin to sample this kind of sound healing process?
Yes, I have a weekly sound healing, online sound healing. It's called the Healing Hour, and that's available on Eventbrite. People, it's by donation, so it's very accessible. I started it during COVID, just because people need a place for calm, literally, and to restore just that reset for their bodies and minds. So they can, connect with me there. I also I offer workshops for people who want to learn how to use sound healing very simply for themselves. And I also train health and wellness practitioners and social justice leaders how to use sound for their clients and communities.
Wow, outstanding. So regardless of how deep you want to get in, there's an opportunity. That's great. And you never know, you might find me on your list for instruction
Wonderful.
at some point. Yeah, I would really look forward to learning a ton more about this. And I've experienced the power of sound in my own life, but not nearly to this level or extent. So this has been outstanding. And I really appreciate your time and joining us here today at the Center of Calmness.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Likewise, so enjoyable. And for the Center of Calmness, I'm DK Warner.